This is Open to Hope Radio, featuring Dr. Gloria Horsley and her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley, coming to you on behalf of the Open to Hope Foundation, dedicated to those who are looking for hope after loss. Now, here's Dr. Gloria.
Welcome to Grief Relief. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host and daughter,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, I really like our show today because it's on journaling to help grief.
Our guest today, her name is Loanne Mayer, and Loanne raised 6 children and studied healing for 25 years, but this did not help her soothe the difficult relationship with her mother. Her mom's death catapulted her into the healing possibilities beyond the veil. Using transpersonal journaling to talk with her mom gave her the tools to deal with the tragic death of her own daughter and to discover that mother-daughter love never dies. Welcome to the show, Loanne.
Oh, thank you so much, Heidi. I'm so proud to be here with you. You have really set the bar very high for those of us who are trying to help heal other people who are grieving. Well, it's wonderful to have all these tools. You know, we need them as we move along in life, don't we, Gloria?
Absolutely. Oh, you talk in the book about your relationship with your mom, and it was difficult.
Part of my studies about healing and metaphysics was to learn how to become more completely free of any judgment or criticism that I had on life in general. But my mother in particular, she was a very old-school person who was very quick to judge others, who was taught judgment through her faith, and was very silent when it came to telling anything intimate with anybody, except perhaps the doctor or someone who had a PhD in something, a male in particular. She was very reverent to the male image. But I was her only daughter, and we just found it impossible to talk about anything that was intimate for the two of us. She was wonderful at other things, but when it came to talking about things that touched the heart, just didn't work. And it was very hard for me since I was her only daughter. I had never in my life been with anyone who died, but I was hospice trained enough to know the implications of what happens, and my mother had been in a place where they warned me that she was dying, but I didn't believe it because I thought I knew everything. You know, when you think you know everything, you don't know anything, I've learned. But in any event, I was with her when she died, and she just gave me this incredible glimpse of the other side, which was extraordinary because she was always terrified of the angel of death. She was raised Catholic and was divorced in the 50s and was absolutely certain that God was going to get her when she got to the other side, and just shook with terror. So the very fact that at the very end of her life, the last 45 minutes, I watched her not only not shake anymore for the first time that I could remember, but to sit up at a 45-degree angle and look at something incredibly awesome, as the children would say, so beautiful that all the lines in her face just disappeared. And she went, oh, oh, oh. And I thought she was going to get out of bed. I mean, I just reached over to catch her. But instead, she lay down and died, just like that.
Wow.
Wow, that's powerful.
So there you are. Mother is now gone, and Mother has gone peacefully, and you are sitting there still wondering about your relationship with her. So what did you do? Tell us.
In fact, I said it out loud. Wait a minute, I have questions. What just happened? Honestly, it just came right out of my mouth, and I thought, oh, my training, my background was that was the end of my opportunity to even try to get information. It was very, very sad. And yet she left me with this incredible glow of a wonder if I could just reach out to her, if she could just come back for a moment and tell me what she saw, what she felt, how it was. I felt like I could let go of what I was holding on to in my heart about my judgment, my resentment, all those things. I knew it, but I didn't know how to do it. I kept thinking about what if I could have just reached out to her and said, Mom, explain this to me. And then another hospice friend of mine said to me many months later, you know, you like to write. Why don't you get yourself a journal and get it out of your head and put it on paper and stop thinking about it already?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's a good idea because I have done journaling from time to time for very specific reasons in my lifetime, and I do like to write. So I went out and bought a book, a journal, and I wrote a letter to my mother saying, please, Mom, if there's any way that you could reach over to me and help me let go of this stuff I'm holding on to, I believe it's possible. And if you can do it, it might help me become a better person. And I will leave it to God to help us find the way. I have a procedure that I do with prayer and meditation and then writing. And then the very next time I picked up the book, I did the same thing, prayer, meditation, and I had more questions. I'm a Leo. What can I tell you? And so I put pen to paper and I wrote, Dear Loanne. But the interesting thing about that was that I wrote it exactly the way my mother wrote my name. My whole life long I wrote, well, from grammar school, L-O capital A-N-N-E. And I wrote Loanne, and I knew that was Mom. I knew right then and there something clearly had happened, and I kept writing. I kept writing word for word. It was almost an automatic response. I couldn't stop, like you would be standing in the middle of a doorway as someone was coming towards you that you hadn't seen in a long time. You just couldn't move. But I kept writing, and she encouraged me to continue writing and get this thing finished.
Now let's flash forward to Cindy and what happened there.
Mm-hmm. My mother and I began a process that was very much like emailing back and forth. It was very quick, and we were asking questions, answering things, helping me, just me. But 5 months after I started doing this journaling with my mother, I went to England on a writer's retreat, oddly enough, and while I was there, our daughter Cindy died suddenly. We couldn't understand what could possibly have happened. Cindy had a young boy who was autistic, and I think if she said it once, she said 200 times, I'm going to have to live a long time because my son is going to need me. So all of us felt like this was a long time commitment that she had made and would never leave this boy or her other son either. So to find out that she had died was also more than traumatic, but more importantly to me, I couldn't find out what happened. There was some resistance on the part of her husband and family to give us the information as to what actually did happen to her. And so I went to my mother. I went to the journal and I said, you've got to help me understand, as any mother of a child would. Is she okay? What happened? Where is she? Is she surrounded by love? What can I do? How do I do this? And the continued letters with my mother helped me to get back into the flow of writing with her. And on the very day that Cindy was to be buried, Cindy jumped into the middle of a letter that I was writing with my mother. Mm. And I knew it was Cindy because the energy changed. It was, Mom, I got to talk to you. You need to understand. And it was just real fast, as opposed to my mother's soft, gentle, wise, loving response. And then I thought, oh, my goodness, maybe there's a way to talk to Cindy. And I did.
Mm-hmm. And what did you find out? She died of a drug overdose?
She died. What in her book, which the story is in there, she talks about the fact that she doesn't remember taking anything, although she did have a new prescription that morning from her psychiatrist. She did have an alcohol problem. And so she thinks in the letter that was written, I didn't remember doing anything, but all of a sudden, Grandma was there and Uncle Artie was there, and both of these people had long since died. And so she felt that she was with them and they were talking. Her Uncle Artie was particularly dear to her heart. He was a Benedictine priest that she loved when she was a child. And she was carrying on this conversation, so she says, with him, and my mother sitting there going, and all of a sudden she realized that they were both dead, and she knew that she was dead. I wrote for about 3 years. I told no one, not even my husband at first, but I could tell something was happening that was good for me. Then I told the family. Then I told my grief counselor, who I was very deeply, I loved her dearly, and she told me that I should think in terms of writing a book. And I said, there's no way that's ever going to happen, for many reasons. But my friend, who turned out to be my publisher and editor, said to me, I think there's someone you ought to meet. And there's a college near me, and this Dr. Jennings is a professor of psychology for 20 years there. But his love is transpersonal psychology. And my friend Lorraine introduced me to him, and I told him what was happening, and his eyes lit up, and he knew exactly what was happening to me and called it a part of transpersonal psychology. One of the things that was so important to me was this memory that I had when I was in England, when I called home to tell them how wonderful it was to be in Glastonbury and how much I loved my trip, and I took money in this, the red phones that the Brits have. It's like a lobster red, and it's a very unusual looking phone from an American. And I remember as I talked to my daughter, she said to me, "Mom, Cindy is dead." And as she did that, all my change went down, and all I remembered was looking at this telephone, this weird object that just had the worst possible news that any mother could have. And that stuck in my mind. I would wake up in the night, thinking about it. So Suzanne started with EMDR with that particular memory for me. And I didn't think anything could possibly come from it. It didn't make sense to me when she explained it to me. She just had me picture the moment, the place, the seat I was sitting in, and she had me give it a number from 1 to 10 that would tell me at what point the pain was for me. And it was off the charts as far as I was concerned. And then she had me do some eye muscle. You look in different directions. They have a very definite program. And then there was a little bit of a touching on the knee when she was done with that, and then she would go on. It probably lasted 10, 15 minutes. It seemed like nothing to me, very non-invasive, not threatening at all. But at the end of it, she would go back and she would say, "Okay, let's look at that picture and tell me what the number is now." And to my great surprise, it went down from 10 to 7. And you can't deny it. I mean, the number is right in your face. You know what it is. But it took a period of time, and that's what some people have difficulty because it takes time. To me, it was very effective. I can think of that phone right now, and I have absolutely no feeling about it one way or the other.
That's what's amazing. The memories are still intact, but the feelings around them are gone.
Exactly.
Anxiety, etc., which I love.
You can gain from that feeling of empowerment that comes when you can think of that particular horrible episode for me, which was my first knowledge of my daughter's death, and be able to move forward from that without that stopping you in your tracks and just turning into a wash of anxiety. So, but I think in most cases, you have to ask. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone is trained in this, and Suzanne was very much into metaphysics.
Yeah, you have to find somebody who's trained in EMDR, and there are people around the United States that are. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, because it's effective.
I wanted to talk about something else that really helped you, and my mom was talking to me about it before the show, and that was the Compassionate Friends.
Yes.
I'm on the board of directors there, and my mom was on the board of directors for 6 years, and we're both very involved with this organization. And you found them how many years after your daughter died?
Oh, almost immediately. My husband's physician recommended it to me. And funny, it was right down the street from where I lived, but I never knew about it. And I went. It was a wonderful nest. I tell everyone about Compassionate Friends because it was literally a nest. Even though you can have people who are helping you in so many directions, many times we go to professionals. But when you sit in a group with people who have actually walked the walk, who understand from a gut sense of what you are going through, and in my case, there was people who had survived. They had moved beyond their original trauma, and they were making the world a better place by finding ways to help others, in their own journey of healing. These people, and run by people who are clearly healers. They're really intending. So for me, 7 years, I was involved in Compassionate Friends.
Well, Loanne, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I just want to give people your website.
It's www.celestialconversations.com, and there's a lot of information there.
You've been listening to Open to Hope Radio, hosted by Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley. Like today's edition, all of our past programs are available on demand at opentohope.com, along with helpful articles, videos, resources, and links to help get you through the toughest time of your life. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Again, that's opentohope.com. Check it out today. Then be sure to stop by next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time when we'll be posting another edition of Open to Hope Radio. Remember, others have been where you are. They made it through, and you can too, as long as you're open to hope.